Today we're traveling the US to visit 10 of the country's most iconic and technologically amazing bridges. Stick with me till the end for a special bonus, a bridge notoriously labeled one of the most catastrophic engineering failures in modern history. Spanning the Hudson River between Fort Lee, New Jersey and Manhattan in New York City, the George Washington Bridge is the world's busiest motor vehicle bridge with over 300,000 vehicles crossing daily. Sometimes referred to as the GW Bridge or the Hudson River Bridge, the gargantuan 14-lane double-decker opened in 1931. At just under a mile long, it was the longest main bridge span on Earth for 6 years until San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge took that distinction in 1937. One of the most beautiful bridges in the world, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge spans Lower Tampa Bay on Florida's west coast, connecting St. Petersburg to Terra Sia. Today's bridge is actually the second bridge of the same name constructed on that site. The original Sunshine Skyway Bridge opened in 1954, while a second span was added in 1971. Sadly, that structure was home to two of the country's biggest maritime disasters just a few months apart, including in May of 1980 when a freighter slammed into one of the bridge's support piers during bad weather, resulting in the bridge's catastrophic failure. Several vehicles, including a Greyhound bus, plunged into Tampa Bay, tragically taking the lives of 35 people. Located in Maryland, the enormous Chesapeake Bay Bridge spans Chesapeake Bay, connecting the eastern shore with Annapolis, the state capital of Maryland. And at just over 4 miles in length, it's one of the longest over-water steel structures on Earth. Known to locals simply as the Bay Bridge, the magnificent structure is actually two bridges, the first which opened in 1952, while the parallel span opened in 1973, and there have been discussions and studies exploring adding a third span to the bridge. Sadly, over 100 people have jumped to their deaths from the towering bridge over the years. Operating for nearly 100 years, the massive Ambassador International Bridge spans 1.5 miles across the Detroit River, connecting Detroit, Michigan to Windsor, Ontario. Opening in 1929, the Ambassador Bridge was the longest central span suspension bridge in the world until the George Washington Bridge took that honor in 1931. The Ambassador Bridge is one of the most active commerce bridges in America and the busiest border crossing point in the U.S., with 25% of all trading products between the U.S. and Canada crossing the immense bridge annually. Truly an architectural marvel, the colossal 13-lane Verrazano-Narrows Bridge connects Brooklyn and Staten Island, two of New York City's most populous boroughs. The Verrazano, as locals call it, traverses the Narrows, which are the waters connecting New York Harbor with Lower New York Bay. With initial construction completed in 1964, the Verrazano, with a central span of just under 1 mile, became the longest suspension bridge in the world, a record it held for 17 years, and it remains the longest suspension bridge in the United States. If you are enjoying this video and love to travel, be sure to tap the like button for me and subscribe to Orbiter Travel. Your support really matters. Sometimes playing second fiddle to San Francisco's other world-famous bridge, the Bay Bridge is no slouch and certainly one of the most amazing architectural accomplishments of the 20th century. Actually comprised of a complex of bridges, the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, or simply known as the Bay Bridge, spans San Francisco Bay, connecting San Francisco and Oakland. The giant bridge accommodates 300,000 commuters daily. And what a gorgeous sight at night, when the Bay Bridge is lit up in all its splendor and can be seen for miles in every direction. Definitely one of the Bay Area's most recognizable and iconic landmarks. The stunning Mackinac Bridge in northern Michigan is a massive structure connecting the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan across the Strait of Mackinac, where the Great Lakes of Lake Huron and Lake Michigan converge on their northern ends. Affectionately nicknamed Big Mac by some and the Mighty Mac by others, the Mackinac Bridge has two central anchorages, and remains the largest suspension bridge in the Western Hemisphere between anchorages. Opening in 1957 after decades of construction struggles, the Mighty Mac is one of Michigan's most popular tourist attractions. One of the most recognizable bridges in the world, 7 Mile Bridge was one of the longest on the planet when the first of two parallel bridges opened in 1912 in the Florida Keys in southern Florida. 70 years after the original bridge opened, a second bridge was constructed, which opened in 1982. Today, thousands of motorists and commercial vehicles travel on 7 Mile Bridge daily, while the original span was eventually transformed into a pedestrian bridge. Still one of the longest in the world, 7 Mile Bridge treats commuters to beautiful views of the Atlantic Ocean's turquoise waters between Key West and mainland Florida. One of New York City's many signature landmarks is the mighty Brooklyn Bridge, which spans the East River and connects the boroughs of Brooklyn and Manhattan. At the time of its completion in 1883, it was the largest suspension bridge in the world. Originally called the New York and Brooklyn Bridge, the immense structure contains 6 traffic lanes as well as a pedestrian and bike lane, and one of the favorite activities for visitors is to walk the mile-long span from one side to the other, which is free to the public. Even the famous New York City Marathon has traversing the bridge as part of the race's route through the city. Easily ranking among the most iconic and photographed bridges in the world, the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge spans the body of water known as the Golden Gate, which is 1 mile wide and connects the Pacific Ocean and San Francisco Bay. When the bridge opened in 1937, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world, a distinction it held for nearly 30 years. And with 2 massive towers stretching nearly 800 feet into the sky, it was also the world's tallest suspension bridge, a title it held for 57 years. Each year over 10 million people visit the glorious Golden Gate Bridge, the undisputed king of American bridges. Earlier I promised to share a bonus bridge that got off to the most inauspicious of beginnings. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge is actually a set of twin parallel suspension bridges that cross the body of water known as the Tacoma Narrows Strait in Washington state. But just 4 months after construction was completed in 1940, the bridge had a catastrophic failure in high winds and plunged into the frigid waters below. Labeled as the most spectacular of bridge engineering failures, there is a silver lining as today the destroyed sunken bridge is one of the world's largest man-made reefs and is federally protected from scavengers. Leave us a comment if you agree with our picks and please subscribe to Orbiter Travel. Check out this next video you're gonna love, where we explore the top natural wonders on Earth.